Anything with community has amazing potential, of course, because there are power in numbers, there's power in people, there's power in connection. But if we're not connected to ourselves, then this connection, quote unquote, with community is false. It's not authentic. That's how you get cults. That's how you get weird Western spiritual groups that are, again, just power imbalances. You can't have balance within a community setting if the individuals aren't in tune with their own selves. But what often happens is that people fall on one or two sides. There are leaders that lack balance when they are so in tune with their own power, but they lack the heart space, they lack the empathy. Then on the other side, you have followers who are so in touch with their empathy, their heart space, they lead with their emotions, but aren't really in their core power. They're not in their power of trusting their intuition and acting on their intuition. There's a difference in power that comes from intuition and power that just comes from the need to have power for the sake of power. I don't even think that's power at the end of the day. That's just disconnect. Power without intuitive guidance is disconnect, and it is causing disconnect, it is acting from a place of disconnect, and it is creating even more disconnect. We're going to talk about sexual freedom, and we're going to talk about empowerment and body empowerment and this movement to reclaim our bodies and reclaim our sensuality and reclaim our sexuality. But I also need to address something else that's coming up. That is the illusion of empowerment and the illusion of support when it comes to freedom. Because in order for me to address all these other areas that I want to talk about, I have to first really discuss that sense of we need to be in tune with ourselves and understand what it means to be in tune with ourselves. And the way society is operating right now is pushing this illusion that we are in tune with ourselves and that we're being ourselves, when it feels like it's all kind of an agenda and a fad and a movement that is actually away from who we might be, just because we don't really know how to find that. And the only way to find that is to go into our bodies and to understand that we don't know what it feels like to feel free from a logical perspective. We can't understand what it feels like to feel that way by someone telling us what that is, or by watching a movie and seeing how someone feels in the movie and being like, that's freedom. It is going on a tour of the world by myself, a solo travel, and finding myself. I really feel like this video has to be about that, has to be about the fact that we're not striving to reach a certain place based on what we think we need to reach. A lot of times we know things from what has been taught mentally to us, logically, right? That makes sense. But when we're transforming, when we're trying to revolutionize the society, when we're trying to move forward from outdated things, we can't define words from the mentality that we've been taught and told. We can't define freedom based on what freedom has been taught to us. We have to define freedom through our own experience and our own journey, and understand that it's not a final destination. None of these words are a final destination. It's a feeling, a sensation. When we're redefining things, it's not redefining things from here. It's redefining things in our body. It's a reintegration. It is a transformation. So when we talk about freedom, when we talk about sexual freedom, for instance, is your sexual freedom coming from a place of oppression? Meaning, if we've been sexualized, objectified, harassed, traumatized under this male gaze, then what we know is the male gaze. The freedom out of the male gaze is to take that power back and say, no, you're not going to objectify me in this way. I'm going to be the one to put myself in my body to wear these clothes. You're not going to tell me to dress a certain way. You're not going to tell me to act a certain way for you. I'm doing it for myself. If we've only been exposed to the male gaze, then we're operating from the sense of empowerment, for example, that's still under the male gaze. Our perception of sexualization, of objectification, is typically something for the visual eye, and then it goes into the body. So what I mean by that is it's this mental visual, it's this mind's understanding of what that means first, or what is appealing. So for instance, certain photos that are sexy. A lot of this movement is taking place through Instagram photos. What we don't realize and what we forget is that a good photo, an empowering photo, a lot of times comes from how it looks, not how it feels. So when we're only accustomed to seeing the male gaze portraying a woman as being sexy, or a person as being sexy, or a person as being this or this or this, sexiness, that beauty comes from certain lighting, certain angles. It comes from certain visual cues rather than certain feelings. When you're feeling your feelings, you're feeling your emotions, that's just indicating where your alignment is maybe off, where it is on, where you want to be in contrast to what you're feeling. It's not these words of right, wrong, alignment. It's not something that the brain can understand and define. I think this is a good time to transition into pornography. And this subject is so triggering for me for many reasons. I'm not even going to get into all the brain neurological stuff with this because I don't have the energy to do that right now. But we know that it alters the brain, right? But I think that it's so messed up to say that this stuff is normal. The accessibility of this, the fact that we're becoming desensitized to the body as a whole, but then because of beauty standards, because things are in season, a big butt, big boobs are in season sometimes, and then the skinny, stick straight body is in season other times, because there are fads with beauty and we're taught what is beautiful, what is desirable. We're teaching our body what to like. It's so hard to talk about this stuff sometimes because we've trained our bodies to behave in certain ways. We've trained our bodies to desire in certain ways beyond just our brains. So we think that this stuff is natural. We think that being exposed to porn at such a young age, normalizing addiction is normal. We consider it all to be standard, and I hate feeling crazy for feeling so triggered by that fact. I don't like the fact that a lot of times being in a relationship with men, they will criticize and feel disrespected by certain outfit choices, but then be the same guys who watch porn, who consume porn, who make comments about other women, because that's saying there are certain women that are allowed to be disrespected and I'm allowed to objectify and I'm allowed to get off on, and then there are certain women like my girlfriend that I'm not allowing to be viewed in the same light. That makes me really uncomfortable anytime something like that's said, not because I want to be objectified and sexualized, but because you're saying that some women are allowed to be this way, and in a relationship I can do that to some women because they're not human. I'm not looking at them the same way as you. I'm looking at you as a person. I'm not looking at these women that I'm getting off on as a person. We dictate who is allowed to be a person, who is allowed to be protected, who is not allowed to be protected. And I don't know what defines these certain things. I don't know if they're visual characteristics. I don't know if it's age. When it comes to my experience in protecting the perpetrator, sometimes it's respect your elders and these people are older and blah 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 blah. I don't get it. I don't know what these unspoken rules are of who is allowed to be protected and who's allowed to be treated right, who's allowed to be visible and who's not, because it changes so often. And I think that's indicative of the problem when it comes to we're not in tune with ourselves. And in some moments we can be a great human being, and in some moments we can be really respectful, and in some moments we can really validate ourselves and validate other people, but then there's this switch that goes off and there's this need to escape. And I think that there's this need to disconnect because connecting is so overwhelming. And part of why I think connecting is so overwhelming is that we're a lot more empathic than we allow ourselves to believe. And like I was saying earlier, if you're all in the heart space, then you're going to get overwhelmed because you're not connected to your body, you're not connected to your own self, you're just completely connected to these external influences and these external factors. And you are going to need to escape yourself because you're not even in yourself. You think you're in yourself, but you're connected more to this external world and these external energies and influences than you are to your internal self. So we try to connect and get our power back, by doing things that make our attention go back on ourselves and make other people's attention go back to ourselves, because we're putting all of ourselves and all of our energy out there. So now to get the balance back, it's doing it through almost this narcissistic way. I think it comes from that place of just being completely overstimulated and overcapacity. And you're going to be overcapacity when you live in a world where you're being fed 1,000 things every few minutes, because you're scrolling through, you're walking down the street, and there are advertisements everywhere. There are so many people everywhere. I live in New York, so for me, that is in surplus. Maybe you don't have a bunch of people walking around you because you live in a normal environment. We can't be doing this push and pull thing. We can't be going in the direction where we're completely in our heart space and then we're too overwhelmed, so we need to go in our core and disconnect from this space of vulnerability. Because then that is causing the sense of dictating who we get to respect and who we don't want to respect. This is dictating who at the end of the day gets to be heard and seen for the sake of keeping peace, because keeping peace is a lot easier when you're disconnected from your heart, when you're disconnected from yourself. To be connected to your heart, to be connected to love for other people, you gotta know what that feels like in yourself, period. It's something we love to quote, we love to talk about, how if you want to have any external transformation, you really gotta start with yourself first. But we start to do that, and then we don't often take responsibility for the fact that it's not just once a day, it's not just once a year on a retreat, it's a moment to moment thing. Your feelings are indicating when you're out of alignment. Your emotions are telling you where you are in your alignment. They're not there to completely analyze and dissect and have years and years of therapy for. I think that's helpful and I think that's great, but I think that the bigger picture is it's just telling you, hey, go back into a state of alignment. Don't do all these things for the sake of feeling too overwhelmed to sit in alignment. If you're unpacking a lot, you're going to feel overwhelmed. So think about how you're unpacking. Think about when you're analyzing something, is it pushing you towards alignment, away from alignment? Is it being transmuted? Is it being transformed? Are you allowing yourself to take all that energy and create something with it? Or are you just trying to escape? Or are you doing things that are actually harmful? If you're working out for the sake of just releasing energy, but you're not actually in your body at all, you're just over here listening to music and passively living life, then it's not going to be as effective. That's not connecting you to yourself, because it's not connecting you to your body. You're passively in your body. Yes, you're working out. Yes, you're releasing endorphins, and so your brain is happy and it's causing your body to feel relief and release. But really think about it. Are you actually in alignment? And if you don't know what it means to be in alignment, then that's a great place to start. We have to not shame ourselves for wanting to be free and wanting to be individual people, and we need to not shame ourselves for equally wanting to belong and equally wanting to be vulnerable and intimate with people. And we need to not shame ourselves for being so hurt by trusting that and then feeling like we got completely betrayed. That's all real. It's going to make us go in different directions. It's going to cause us to stay away from a sense of trusting ourselves when it comes to vulnerability, either with ourselves or with other people, because pain is real, trauma is real. And when we get hurt by certain things and it shocks our system, it's going to shock us out of wanting to put ourselves out there like that, even just when it comes to honesty and openness with ourselves. But when we normalize harmful behaviors because we're not accepting and being honest with ourselves, when we normalize things like pornography that's like sexualizing and objectifying women, then we become selective on which instances we're allowed to do it in, when we're allowed to do it, when we're not allowed to do it. We create a society where all of this stuff is in surplus. It's normal. It's expected from people. When you're the outlier, then you question yourself. When you're not behaving in that way, it goes deeper than just belonging. We're just not living, is what it comes down to. We're not connected. And what's the point of being here if we're not at least making an attempt to connect and to enjoy ourselves in the best possible way? it's sad that we normalize things like alcohol and drugs. I think it's sad that we normalize things like hallucinogens to allow ourselves to access a sense of spirituality. I think there's a time and a place for that, but the fact that if people consider me a spiritual person, they automatically assume that I'm smoking weed and doing all these other things. I think that's problematic because we don't need any of those external things to calm ourselves down or to deal with life and society. We just need our own power and to know what that means and to know where our own energy is and is capable of. I really feel uncomfortable with how many things are normalized and expected in human beings that we know internally that this is a little weird, but because it's normalized, we're going to keep doing it. And then it's weird that when I talk about this or talk about things that are very normalized that I view as harmful, when I say it as a matter of fact of, hey, maybe as a society we shouldn't make it the thing, the response is we each have our own ways of dealing with stuff, of waking up, of going through stuff. And I completely understand all that and I agree. But can we question and can we look at what the norms are and what effect that's having? And if you are truly in alignment from that, if you're doing stuff that's the norm and you consider yourself depressed, then what you're doing is not working. If you consider yourself tired of life, if you consider yourself out of tune with your emotions, then what you're doing is not working. Period. If you consider yourself disconnected in some way, shape, or form, what you're doing is not working. And it doesn't mean you have to be connected 24/7, but if you don't know how to engage your intuition, or if it's hard in some moments that it just causes you to give up, then there are better ways. There are always better ways. Not being in alignment is not the end all be all. It's not the option. It's not the final option. There are ways to feel into yourself, to feel into your energy, to get to know yourself and your energy without anybody telling you what that is for yourself and without yourself telling you and forcing you to expect that it's going to feel a certain way. I have no idea what direction society is moving in. It's so confusing to me because it seems like we're moving into a more open direction and accepting direction, but I feel like we're just putting ourselves in even more boxes and making things a lot more complicated than it needs to be. I don't understand this push towards empowerment and identity and freedom when it feels like no one is really truly happy and connected, and for some reason the literacy rate is going down and down. Not for some reason, I understand, but the literacy rate is going down and down and people are out of tune with their imaginations. I bring up the literacy rate because I believe that reading is critical for the imagination to thrive, and we don't have access to the imagination in a lot of ways that we used to. There's no reason music has to be this bad. The popular music does not need to be this atrocious. It does not need to make me feel the way I feel after listening to it. There's such a lack of imagination, and imagination directly comes from being equally in tune with your inner world and the outer world simultaneously. Sometimes we feel like we need to get in tune with ourselves first and then connect to other people. But I feel like those two things need to be happening at the same time. I know I've said we need to get in touch with ourselves first, but it's not we need to isolate and escape in order to just come back to ourselves. When we get to the point where we have to escape to come back to ourselves or take a whole year off to come back to ourselves, it's because we've gone too far. And that's not normal. It's not normal to go super far to where you need to escape to then connect. I have so much more to say on this, and I don't even know how to end this. I'm not even sure where to leave off on. So I guess I'll plug my stuff. I'm Aisha. I have a book, I have a website, I have a practice, I have events, and I have a lot of content where I try to take the abstract stuff in my brain and try to concretize them, sometimes through art, sometimes through YouTube videos, sometimes through God knows what. Genuinely God knows what, because sometimes I don't know what. I'm in a state where sometimes I feel scared to say certain things because it's not a fully formed thought yet. Like, it's a fully formed feeling and sensation, but I get scared to say the words associated with them because how we describe things, how we define things, has veered away from what the integrity of certain words offer, especially in the space of freedom, empowerment, masculine and feminine energies, and all that. The definitions just mean completely different things, I feel like, than they did some years back. So I can't tell you what my next video is going to be, but it might be a part 2 of this, it might be my PMDD part 2, it might be something else. But I can tell you that they all do relate to each other, and I think that this video is kind of the foundational essence of everything I do and everything I create. It stems from some of these concepts. I hope that you at least take some time to reflect and not be afraid to challenge what you normalize in your life. And I'm gonna continue doing the same and add to what I say and practice what I preach. I hope you have a great day, week, month. Hope you stay connected and stay curious, and go use your imagination for good and connection, please.